Fall is my favorite season because it's football season. Football's easily my favorite sport to watch, to coach, and it was my favorite sport to play. And now each week when a team is getting ready for their upcoming game, they put together a game plan based on what they know about the other team. The game plan often consists of the plays they believe will work against the schemes and strategies of the team they'll be playing. So the game plan is more than just a packet of plays they want to run. It's actually a plan to prepare for the resistance that they're going to face. In our faith journey, there will always be resistance to our desire to follow Jesus. Whether we experience this resistance in the form of physical threats or cultural pressure, the root of the resistance to our faith is spiritual. In Paul's letter to the believers in Ephesus, God uses Paul to tell us where the resistance comes from and how we need to respond. Look at Ephesians 6, starting with verse 10. He wrote, "A final word, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all the strategies of the devil. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against the evil spirits in the heavenly places." The greater threat to our faith journey isn't a physical threat, but a spiritual one. There's a daily battle for our lives. Our enemy, the devil, wants to destroy our lives. Jesus said that his entire goal is to steal, kill, and destroy. He doesn't want you to experience the full and satisfying life that's found when we fully follow Jesus. The early church that we read about in the New Testament faced immense resistance to their faith, physically and spiritually. The Christians in Rome were often persecuted for their faith and put in prison for false charges against them. And God used Peter to encourage them to remain strong in their faith in spite of the challenges they were facing. He told them how to respond to the resistance in 1 Peter 5, starting with verse 8. He says, "Stay alert, watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Stand firm against him and be strong in your faith. Remember that your family of believers all over the world is going through the same kind of suffering you are." Here he tells them, be ready for the resistance and ultimately to resist the resistance. To do that, he says, stay alert. Ignoring the real enemy won't make him go away. When kids are young, they don't get the concept of hide and seek right away, right? You tell them to go hide while you count, and they may walk a short distance and just close their eyes thinking, if they can't see you, then you can't see them, right? Wrong, right? And all too often we act like if we don't acknowledge our spiritual enemy, then he won't mess with us, right? Wrong again. There's a classic book by C.S. Lewis called The Screwtape Letters that's written from the perspective of one of the devil's demons. He wrote this letter to his nephew, revealing the strategies and tactics of the enemy. Now, while it's literary fiction, it isn't far off in explaining the enemy's strategies. One of those strategies is to simply encourage the neglect of the spiritual realm. Meaning, if he can get us to ignore the reality of the spiritual battle, we will be defenseless to his attacks. I believe this is why God tells us through Peter to stay alert. Recognize the real threat. Don't get caught sleeping. He says, be on guard, recognizing the strategy of the enemy is to catch us with our guard down. He is deceptive and manipulative and will try to pounce on us and destroy our faith when we expect it the least. So Peter says, stay alert and stand firm. He says, stand firm in your faith. We do this by building our lives on the foundation of our faith in Jesus. That our relationship with him is foundational to all that we do. Jesus, in his time here on earth, talked about those who build their lives on sand and those who build their lives on the rock. For those who build their lives on the rock are the kind of people who apply God's truth to their lives. They allow His truth to form and shape the way they live and the decisions they make. And He says, when the storms of life come, they won't be shaken. However, the people who build their lives on the sand are those who don't apply God's truth to their lives. And when the storms of life come, their faith will crumble. The only difference is how we respond to God's truth. If we're going to stand firm in our faith, we must build our lives on His truth and allow it to determine the way we live. Now, the big struggle for many of us is simply that we don't spend time getting to know His truth. It's almost like getting a piece of furniture from a store like IKEA that has to be assembled, and we barely look at the instructions, and then we get frustrated when it doesn't seem to go together like we thought it should. And the issue isn't with the one who made the furniture. The issue is with the one who failed to follow the instructions. In the same way, this is a huge struggle for us when it comes to building our lives on the solid foundation of our faith in Jesus. We don't take the time to discover what God has told us in Scripture. And sometimes when we do know what God tells us in Scripture, we ignore it, believing that our way will work out well enough. And the truth is, if we are going to stand firm in our faith, we must allow our faith to transform the way we live. If we don't, we make ourselves easy targets for the enemy. Peter wraps up the warning with a simple reminder that we aren't alone in these attacks, that the enemy isn't going against you alone, but against all followers of Jesus. We aren't alone in our resistance either, but have other believers all around the world who are with us in our battle. This is also why being connected to a faith family is so important, because we need each other to encourage us in our journey and to stand firm in our faith. In your groups, take time to discuss how the enemy attacks your faith and what it looks like to build your faith so that you can stand firm together.